Time for breakfast, 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And concerning the matters you wrote to me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman, but because of whoring, let each one have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. Let the husband render to his wife what is due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another, except with agreement for a time, to give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again so that Satan does not try you because of your lack of self-control. And I say this as a concession, not as a command. For I wish that all men were even as I myself, and each one has his own gift from Elohim, one in this way and another in that. And I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am. But if they do not have self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. And to the married I command, not I, but the master, a wife should not separate from her husband. But if she is indeed separated, let her remain unmarried, or be restored to favor with her husband, and let a husband not send away a wife. And to the rest I say, not the master, if any brother has an unbelieving wife, and she thinks well to live with him, let him not send her away. And a woman who has an unbelieving husband, if he thinks well to live with her, let her not send him away. For the unbelieving husband has been set apart in the wife, and the unbelieving wife has been set apart in the husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but now they are set apart. And if the unbelieving one separates, let him separate himself. A brother or a sister has not been enslaved in such matters, but Elohim has called us to peace. For how do you know, O wife, whether you shall save your husband? Or how do you know, O husband, whether you shall save your wife? Only as Elohim has distributed to each one, as the master has called each one, so let him walk. And so I order in all the assemblies. Was anyone called while circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. Was anyone called while uncircumcised? Let him not be circumcised. The circumcision is not, and the uncircumcision is not, but the guarding of the commands of Elohim does matter. Let each one remain in the same calling in which he called. Were you called while a slave? It matters not to you, but if you are able to become free to, rather use it. For he who is called in the master while a slave is the master's freed man. Likewise, he who is called while free is a slave of Messiah. You were bought with a price. Do not become slaves of men. Brothers, let each one remain with Elohim in that calling in which he was called. And concerning maidens, I have no command from the master, but I give judgment as one whom the master in his compassion has made trustworthy. I think then that this is good because of the present necessity, that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be loosed. Are you loosed from a wife? Do not seek a wife. But even if you should marry, you have not sinned. And if a maiden should marry, she has not sinned. But such shall have pressure in the flesh, but I would spare you. And this I say, brothers, The time is short, so that from now on even those who have wives should be as though they had none, and those who weep as though they did not weep, and those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice, and those who buy as though they did not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it. For the scene of this world is passing away. And I wish you to be without concern. He who is unmarried is concerned about the matters of the master, how to please the master. But he who is married is concerned about the matters of the world, how to please his wife. Therefore is a difference between a wife and a maiden. The unmarried woman is concerned about the matters of the master, and that she might be set apart both in the body and the spirit. But she who is married is concerned about the matters of the world, and how to please her husband. And this I say for your own good, not to put a restraint on you, but for what is proper, and to attend to the master without distraction. And if anyone thinks he is behaving improperly toward his maiden, if she is past the flower of her youth, and so it should be, let him do what he desires. He does not sin, let them marry. But he who stands steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, and has authority over his own desire, and has so decided in his heart to guard his own maiden, does well. So that he who gives her in marriage does well, but he who does not give her in marriage does better. A wife is bound by Torah as long as her husband lives, and if her husband dies, she is free to be married to whom she desires, only in the master. But she is better off if she remains as she is, according to my opinion. And I think I also have the spirit of Elohim. Well, since that was all his opinion, I'll go ahead and give mine. I actually feel that I was more worldly when I was single, and walking with the Lord has been easier while married. So there's my tidbit.